Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I keep my cool in most situations. Living with three siblings taught me to pick my battles. My parents stressed staying calm when things get tense, which helps me handle most problems as an adult. But some people test your limits. It was a normal Saturday afternoon doing grocery shopping at the local supermarket. I had been running errands all day, and grocery shopping was my last stop before heading home. I picked up items from the bakery when I heard shouting from across the store. Walking over, I saw a woman making a scene at the meat section. I watched, wondering what caused such an outburst. Getting closer, I heard her demanding a refund for meat she bought earlier. The store manager tried to calm her down, but she kept getting louder. The woman screamed that the meat was spoiled and she wanted her money back. Her voice echoed through the store. The meat package wasn't even opened and looked fine. She was being unreasonable, and the manager was getting frustrated. The manager told her the meat was good, and they couldn't give her a refund. The woman then said she would shop elsewhere and walked off. I shook my head. What the hell was that even for? I went back to shopping. I got the rest of my groceries and went to check out. The cashier was friendly as she scanned my items. Everything seemed back to normal. Then I saw the woman again in the parking lot. She stood in front of my car, arms crossed with a scowl. At first I thought I was wrong, but getting closer, it was definitely the same woman. I asked her to excuse me trying to get to my car door. She didn't move. I asked if I could help her with something. The woman, who I now thought of as Karen, told me she needed a ride home. Was she serious? She wanted me. A stranger who just watched her throw a fit to drive her home? I told her I couldn't give her a ride since I didn't know her. Karen told me I needed to figure something out because she wasn't leaving. She blocked my way to the driver's door, and my heart beat faster. I looked around for security but saw nobody. I told her I needed to get home because my groceries had frozen items that would melt. Karen told me that wasn't her problem. She said her car wouldn't start and she needed to get home. I suggested calling a cab or a friend or family member. Karen said she didn't have time for that. She told me I looked like I had nothing important to do, so I should drive her. I got more upset every second. Who did she think she was? I told her I wasn't giving her a ride. She stepped closer and I backed up. Her look changed from entitled to threatening, and I felt unsafe. I told her I didn't owe her anything and to move before I called the police. She smirked, thinking I was bluffing, but I wasn't. I took out my phone and started dialing 911, hoping she would leave. Instead, she grabbed my phone, threw it on the ground, and broke the screen. She yelled that this was what I got for being rude to her. She rushed at me. I stumbled back, avoiding her arms. I felt scared and angry, knowing I had to protect myself. I looked around for something to defend myself with. I spotted a shopping cart, grabbed it by the handle, and held it in front of me like a shield. She came at me again, harder this time. I swung the cart at her, hitting her chest and knocking her down. She yelled in pain, hitting the ground, struggling to breathe. Before I could think about helping, she got up and came at me again. She told me I would regret what I'd done. Her voice was rough from being hit. I held the cart tightly, waiting for another attack. I knew I couldn't hold her off much longer. I was smaller and weaker, and she seemed set on hurting me. When I started losing hope, I heard someone behind me. A police officer asked what was happening. I turned to see him walking up, hand on his gun. I felt relieved. I told the officer this woman attacked me and pointed at her on the ground. Karen told him I attacked her with a shopping cart and to arrest me. The officer told us both to calm down and explain what happened. I told the officer everything, how she demanded a ride, blocked my car, broke my phone, and attacked me when I said no. Karen kept cutting me off, saying I had agreed to drive her but changed my mind. The supermarket had security cameras, and the officer checked my story. He took Karen into custody and asked if I needed medical help. I told him I was okay and thanked him for coming. He took my statement and let me go, saying I acted in self-defense and wouldn't face charges. He also told me Karen had a warrant for assault in another county, which explained why she didn't want to call for help with her car. Walking back to my car, I felt relieved it was over. My hand shook while putting groceries in the trunk. I looked at my broken phone and knew Replacing it would be expensive, but I was safe. I drove away, checking my mirror like she might appear behind me. The adrenaline made me jumpy. I was angry someone could be so entitled and aggressive for no reason. I just wanted to buy groceries and go home but ended up in a parking lot fight. I was proud for standing my ground and not giving in. Pulling into my driveway, I decided to be more aware of my surroundings. There will always be entitled people waiting to take advantage. All I can do is stay calm and hope I never need a shopping cart for protection again. I sat in my car trying to calm down. It wasn't easy with my blood boiling and heart racing. I had just been humiliated in front of the neighborhood by my nemesis Karen. She always had to one-up me, always had to make me look bad. But not today. Today I had a plan. Karen and I were rivals since we were kids. We grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same school. We were always competing, whether for top grades, the lead in the school play, or the attention of the cute boy down the street. It didn't matter what it was. Karen had to win. The worst part was that our parents were friends, so I saw her at family gatherings too. My parents told me to ignore her, but that was impossible when she was always there. In middle school, I joined the debate team thinking she wouldn't be interested. 2 weeks later, she joined too and became team captain by semester's end. High school was no better. I found my passion in art class, creating pieces our teacher praised. Then Karen took private art lessons, and her work got featured in the local newspaper. When I started dating a boy from our class, Karen told him I was too intense. He broke up with me. A week later, they were dating. College should have been my escape. We went to different universities, and for 2 years I didn't see her. Then she transferred to my college for an opportunity her dad arranged. Even with different majors, I studied design while she was in pre-law. She still competed with me. When I told her about my internship with a jewelry designer, she bragged about her summer program at Harvard Law that her dad arranged. She always had something bigger and better. After graduation, I moved home to save money while starting my business. I put everything into my boutique, creating handmade jewelry and accessories. It was my dream until Karen moved back too. She got a job at her father's law firm. She came to my shop regularly to browse, which meant criticizing everything from my displays to my pricing. During one visit, she picked up a necklace and complained about the price, saying it looked cheap and she'd seen similar items at the mall for less. When I explained my pieces were handcrafted with genuine gemstones, not mass-produced, she said I'd never succeed selling jewelry in our neighborhood. When she left, I had to breathe deeply to stay calm. My customers loved my work and business was good, but her comments bothered me. The final straw came 3 weeks ago. Karen threw a huge party at her house with catered food, bartenders, and valet parking. She invited everyone in the neighborhood, including me. The invitation felt like a taunt. I almost didn't go, but my friend said it would be good for networking. Plus, I had a plan to finally put Karen in her place. I spent extra time getting ready, wearing a dress I designed myself. It was simple but elegant, with beadwork that matched my jewelry. I felt confident walking into the party until I saw Karen. She wore an outfit that probably cost more than a month's rent for my shop. Her hair and makeup were done by professionals, and her jewelry looked expensive. I held my head high and walked through the crowd. Karen saw me right away and came over with champagne in hand. She looked me up and down before saying something about my dress, asking if I made it myself in a way that made it sound cheap. I smiled and told her yes, I did make it. She then said she heard one of my necklaces broke when a customer wore it. This was a lie. I've never had complaints about my work. I told her I stand by my products and would fix any problems. Karen laughed and said my business would fail. I excused myself and went to the bathroom to call my friend. I asked if everything was ready for our plan. When she asked if I was sure about doing this, I told her I was done with Karen's attitude and it was time she learned a lesson. My friend agreed it was time. I hung up and looked in the mirror. All the times Karen made me feel small ran through my mind. I fixed my dress and hair, then walked out confident. Most guests were in the backyard. Lights hung overhead and a band played in the corner. Karen stood in the center with people around her, telling a story that made them laugh. I tapped her shoulder. When she turned, I saw she was annoyed by the interruption. I told her I wanted to move past our differences. She asked what I was up to, but I insisted I only wanted to be friends. She reluctantly agreed. I smiled and told her I had a surprise. I signaled my friend waiting by the fence. She disappeared briefly, then returned with three others carrying a large banner. They unfolded it for everyone to see. It showed a giant photo of Karen with the words, "World's Best Lawyer" above it. But this wasn't a nice photo. It was from our sophomore year in high school. It was picture day, and Karen had bragged all morning about her expensive outfit and haircut. But right before her photo, she tripped into a mud puddle. Her hair was ruined, her makeup smeared, and she looked shocked and angry. Someone took a photo and I kept it all these years. Karen's face changed from confusion to horror to anger in seconds. She asked what was going on, her voice high with anger. I stepped forward and said it was a tribute to her hard work. Karen told me to take the banner down now. I refused, saying we worked hard on it and wanted everyone to see our appreciation. The crowd went quiet. Some tried not to laugh, others looked uncomfortable. Karen stepped toward me and again demanded I remove the banner. When I refused, she lunged at me, reaching for my throat. But I was ready. I stepped aside and grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her back. She screamed. I told her I wouldn't let her bully me anymore and that we would be equals from now on. I warned her if she couldn't handle that, she'd face problems. She struggled briefly, then went limp. I let go, and she stumbled back, rubbing her arm and looking at her shocked guests. The silence was heavy. Karen had always kept a perfect image in public. She acted sweet to people's faces while hurting them behind their backs. Now everyone saw the real Karen, a bully who couldn't handle being challenged. Karen started yelling for everyone to leave her house. No one moved until a friend approached and suggested she calm down. This made Karen angrier, and she repeated that everyone should go. People gathered their things, whispering to each other. I heard them saying they never knew she was like this. I stood my ground as Karen's perfect world fell apart. She stared at me with hate, but I didn't move. I told her to enjoy her party and that I'd see her around. When I walked away, I felt lighter. Years of feeling less than Karen, of being her competition target, were over. I had stood up for myself. The next day, my boutique was busier than ever. Word spread about the party, and everyone in the neighborhood came to see my work. I sold more jewelry that day than I usually did in a week. When closing up, I saw Karen across the street. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away and hurried off. For the first time, she avoided me. I sat in my car thinking about what happened. I wasn't proud of how things went, but I didn't regret standing up for myself. Revenge felt good. History is my favorite subject. I like learning how people lived in the past. I'm not popular at school, but I have a small group of friends. For our semester project, we had to create a timeline of a historical event. I chose the women's suffrage movement because I find it interesting how women fought for their right to vote. I spent weeks researching, collecting pictures, creating timelines, and putting everything on a poster board. I stayed up late many nights to make sure it was perfect. On presentation day, I woke up early. I was nervous but excited to show everyone what I'd created. My mom made my favorite breakfast and helped me pack my project so it wouldn't get damaged on the bus. I got to school 30 minutes before class, wanting to set up my presentation. When I walked into the history classroom, I saw our teacher at her desk grading papers. She didn't look up when I entered. I never liked this teacher. She was tall with a sharp nose and wore her hair in a tight bun. She never smiled and made students feel small. I was walking toward my desk when I tripped on something and nearly fell. I looked down, and it was my project, crumpled up and trampled on the floor like trash. I picked it up with shaking hands. My work was ruined. The poster was bent and torn, the pictures were crinkled, and my written notes were smudged. The teacher looked up and saw me with my destroyed project. She told me that she threw away my project because it wasn't good enough. I asked her how she could throw away something I worked on for weeks. She told me maybe next time I put in more effort and told me to take my seat. I wanted to cry but held it in. I put what was left of my project in my backpack and sat down. I couldn't focus all day. When other students presented their projects, the teacher praised them, even the ones clearly done last minute. When my turn came, she said I didn't have a project and gave me a 0. When I got home, my mom noticed something was wrong. We're close and she can read me well. I tried to hold it together, but when she asked what happened, I broke down. I told my mom how my teacher threw away my project before I could present it, put it on the floor where I would trip, and said it wasn't good enough. My mom's face changed. She's a lawyer and very protective. She told me she would come to school with me tomorrow. The next morning, Mom took the day off work and came with me. She wore her lawyer clothes. Before class, we went to the history room where the teacher was at her desk. Mom asked to speak with the teacher about what happened to my project. The teacher asked who she was. When Mom said she was my mother and wanted an explanation, the teacher said my project didn't meet requirements. Mom asked if she thought it was okay to throw my project on the floor where I would trip without letting me present. The teacher said she didn't have to explain her methods and we should talk to the principal. Mom said we would, but wanted to give her a chance to explain first. The teacher rolled her eyes and turned back to her papers. Mom took my hand and said we were going to the principal. We went to the principal's office. Mom explained what happened and the principal called the teacher in. The adults talked while I waited outside, but I heard everything through the door. The teacher said Mom was overreacting, that the project was bad and she had the right to grade how she wanted. Mom said grading was one thing, but destroying my property and humiliating me was another. She asked if the teacher knew how many hours I spent on that project. The teacher said it wasn't her problem if I couldn't handle criticism. Mom said this wasn't criticism but bullying. She said the teacher destroyed a student's work and put it where they would trip on it. She called it destruction of property and abuse of a minor. The principal tried to calm them down, but the teacher wouldn't apologize. Mom took out her phone and told them she had photos of the damaged project and my written statement. She said she would file a complaint with the school board that day and maybe a police report for destruction of property. The teacher went pale. She thought she could intimidate me and Mom would let it go. Within a week, the school board investigated. They found other students had similar problems with this teacher. 2 weeks later, the teacher was suspended. Mom helped me recreate my project, and the principal let me present it to another history teacher who gave me an A. I even presented it at a school assembly about women's history. The teacher lost her job. She had many complaints over the years, but no one pushed back like my mom did. What started as one of the worst days of school taught me to stand up for myself and not let bullies get away with treating me badly. Having a lawyer mom helps. I was a rule follower who avoided conflict. This followed me into my job at a marketing agency where I worked for 3 years. I started as an analyst and became a project manager through hard work. Things changed when the company restructured and I got a new boss. We didn't get along from the start. It was a cold, rainy night. Instead of staying home with a book and tea, I stood in my boss's office while he yelled at me for a mistake I didn't make. My boss shouted that the report was unacceptable and the quarterly projections were wrong. I tried explaining that the numbers came from accounting and I had checked them. He accused me of suggesting he couldn't read financial data and mentioned his 15 years in the industry. When I tried to clarify, he told me he wanted it fixed by tomorrow morning, no matter how late I had to stay. My boss micromanaged everything and took credit for our work while blaming us for his mistakes. He was a bully and I was tired of it. Accounting later confirmed my numbers were correct, but he never apologized. This happened often. The week before, he presented my marketing strategy to the executives as his own idea. When they praised it, he took all the credit without mentioning me. After 2 months, I was exhausted. 3 co-workers had quit and morale was low. I needed to do something but couldn't afford to lose my job. I decided to give him a taste of his own medicine by following his every demand exactly, but in the most troublesome way possible. One day, he told me to create a financial report, something I'd done many times. Instead of doing it the usual way, I made it needlessly complex. He told me he needed a comprehensive financial analysis by end of day, including quarterly comparisons, departmental breakdowns, and next year's projections. I said I would get started. I created complicated formulas and calculations that would take hours, knowing he needed the report soon. When he checked on me, I smiled and said I was working on it. I told him I was creating a custom algorithm for interdepartmental spending patterns. When he seemed confused and said he didn't remember asking for that, I reminded him he wanted it comprehensive with everything included. I asked if I should leave it out. He backed down and told me to continue but finish today. Throughout the day, his frustration grew as he realized I wouldn't finish on time. He paced back and forth and hit his desk. Later, he asked how much longer the report would take, mentioning the executive meeting in 2 hours. I said I was working as fast as I could and asked if he still wanted it perfect. At 5 o'clock, I handed him the report with a smile. It was 47 pages of complex charts, excessive footnotes, and an appendix listing every transaction from the past year. He looked at it in shock. He asked if I spent the entire day on this. I said yes. He complained it was too much information, and they only needed highlights. I apologized and said he hadn't specified that, then offered to make a summary. He said there was no time. He walked out of the office, but I knew I had won. The executives were overwhelmed by the details, and my boss couldn't explain half the report when questioned. For weeks after, I continued my malicious compliance, following his every instruction literally, but in the most annoying way. Whenever he complained, I simply said I did exactly what he asked. When he wanted regular updates on a project, I sent emails every 30 minutes. When he said to double-check everything, I made him sign every document. When he said to keep everyone in the loop, I copied the whole department and sometimes the CEO on every email. He asked why I sent 15 emails in one day about the Parker account. I said he wanted regular updates and I wanted him fully informed. He asked why the CEO was copied on an email about coffee machine maintenance. I told him he said to keep everyone in the loop and I didn't want to exclude anyone. Soon my boss realized he couldn't control me like the others. The more specific his instructions, the more creatively I interpreted them. He started to respect me and gave me more freedom with my projects. For a new campaign, he told me to handle it however I thought was right and just update him on major developments. I asked if he was sure, saying I wouldn't want to decide things without his input. He said he trusted my judgment. Standing up for myself was the only way to change things. By following his unreasonable demands exactly, I showed how ridiculous they were. He learned to be more reasonable and clearer with instructions. 3 months later, he transferred to another department and I became team lead. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.